Everett was diagnosed with spina bifida. We found out when we were pregnant with him. Since then, we've just kind of adapted life. You know, things change the way we can play outside, the devices we can use, the toys that people make. He's gonna have so much fun.
For him to have the independence to be able to use that without one of us right there helping him is just so exciting for him, and being able to keep up with neighborhood kids and stuff like that. It'll be really great for him socially.
They're so grateful and so happy. There's been a lot of tears.
Good job, Cameron. There you go. Yeah, Mila.
Chloe's 2 years old. She was born with spina bifida. She just like lit up. She loves it. This is an act of love, and these kids need that.
You know, when we have build days and there's 20 people there and they're all putting cars together, and such a huge difference, we can accomplish so much more and help so many more families.
And over the last couple months, they had to give up hours at a time to come in and build these cars for these kids, to do something that is really special for a lot of families.
I thank them a whole lot.
Well, first of all, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. How many people do you have that need hot cocoa?
This evening we're having our drive-through live nativity where people can literally safely stay in their cars, drive through, see different scenes that recreate the Christmas story.
Oh, hello. Are you traveling to Bethlehem for the census?
My name is Elizabeth, wife of the priest Zechariah.
We're going to have a few cars go through at a time, and they'll be able to see certain moments of the Christmas narrative.
Stop in the name of Herod.
And kind of stop, have a moment where they'll hear somebody on a microphone.
Well, the road to Bethlehem has been very busy tonight.
And some actors and different people who share a different part of the Christmas story. There's all sorts of fun things for the family to enjoy.
Welcome to Bethlehem. Would you like some jewelry?
I mean, you couldn't tell a more COVID 2020 Christmas story than the first Christmas. Was unexpected, unplanned, undesired, and yet out in the darkness and out in the cold, Mary and Joseph, baby Jesus, the shepherds, it's all about people who came together and still found light in the darkness and still found hope in situations that were beyond their control.
This production here is quite extensive, and the number of people participating and the enthusiasm has been wonderful.
This is really, really special. I wish we had our grandkids with us.
The Messiah is born tonight.
This is a dark time for a lot of people, but we are going to do our best to at least try to bless Blue Springs and bless the Kansas City area through this little gesture.
The only thing that has changed is the ability to cover it up.
Meritless discipline, retaliation, and creation of diversity and inclusion committees that have no true power. These are just some of the ways workers tell Fox 4 make the environment not only hostile, but malicious for black workers at the Kansas City VA.
In a way, would you say it's worse?
I would say that it's worse. I would say that during the whole protest, the George Floyd movement, there was incentive to show levels of diversity that don't exist.
In fact, the NAACP and coalition of other civil rights and clergy groups are still waiting on another sit-down with Medical Center Director David Isaacs. They were promised last year.
We did have a meeting with David Isaac, but the meeting did not amount to very much. We had several issues that we wanted to talk with him about at a further date. He gave us a list of dates that were available. We were not available. We called back to make sure that we could get back on his calendar, and we have not had any success.
President of the local chapter, Reverend Dr. Rodney Williams, says they have called multiple times, and they've even emailed.
Plenty enough time to have responded if they were intending to respond.
A similar sentiment from Justice Gatson.
I'm yet to see it.
who made herself known as a steady figure protesting outside the VA hospital for most of 2020, speaking for those who say they could not speak up for themselves for fear of retaliation.
Right now, I stand as a disappointed person, a disappointed activist organizer, because our city can actually do better.
But according to the VA, they are doing better. When Fox 4 questioned the spokesperson at the hospital, we were told the VA was moving its focus to vaccinations. We were also referred to this survey from December of 2020. The agency's own assessment highlights tremendous improvements and an increased satisfactory and response rating of 73%. Sounds good, right? But despite a request, the VA never provided specific numbers of exactly who was counted in that survey, and the VA also never provided the request for previous year's surveys and comparisons.
So what you're seeing is not reflective of what the Black employees feel. Black employees are afraid of the system, that nothing that they do or say remains anonymous.
The anonymous worker says that survey doesn't align with company culture and that genuine change must begin at the top.
What has it been like since all of this happened?
Over the last year, we filed many claims of discrimination for individuals there. We have resolved a couple, but the sad thing is that some of those have had to go on to federal court.
Attorney Nimrod Chappell says he currently has 33 clients at VA hospitals around the country, 18 of those from Kansas City.
That these 33 cases are just the tip of the iceberg.
He says the cases are clear and he knows it won't happen overnight, but he plans to continue to push for answers, just like everyone else.
First of all, we're not going to let it ride.
It's not done, not by a long shot.
Meanwhile, workers are hoping things will one day improve, but they say the VA's claims that it has already happened are simply not true.
The inside employees are going through pure hell.
You feel like you're all alone carrying this huge secret.
Abby was 11 years old when she says her best friend's stepfather first started to notice her. He gave her attention, made her feel special and beautiful. He started wanting photos of her, then taking them, then sending those to other men.
It started out really gentle. It developed into something much more.
He used her photos against her to lure her into sex trafficking until she felt stuck. Abby says he threatened her, her family, even killed her dog to control her.
I thought if I talked about it at all, that somebody would have died, and that would have been blood on my hands. You know, my abuser poisoned my dog.
Russ Tuttle is president and founder of the Stop Trafficking Project. He says sextortion and trafficking are happening now in Kansas City, in the suburbs, rural towns, and as the numbers skyrocket, COVID-19 is not helping.
Kids who maybe the only trusted adult is someone within the school district system, or maybe it's a teacher or a coach or someone at school, an administrator or a nurse, and they don't have access to those people right now.
The Stop Trafficking Project educates kids and parents through schools, workshops, and online resources. He says parents, guardians, and trusted adults do need to stay involved in their kids' lives daily.
It doesn't mean that parents need to know about every single app that exists, because that's impossible. It does mean that you should have unfettered access to that device.
Renee Van Meter leads the team at Johnson County Mental Health. She says teenage brains are still learning to solve problems and regulate emotions. So when trauma happens, they don't know how to cope.
That's when we start seeing kids isolate socially. I don't want to be around my family. I don't want to be around my friends. And all of this is building to this perfect storm. And the perfect storm for me is when someone gets to the point of worthless, hopeless, and helpless.
Harming themselves or taking their own lives can seem like their only way out. For Abby, it was anorexia. It almost killed her before she finally told her parents about the sextortion.
I would want somebody to know that they're not disgusting, they're not abused, they are abused, but they're not damaged, they're not worthless, they're not all of these things that they're led to believe because of how they feel.
Van Meter says talk to your children about this long before you think they need it.
And so we have to have those conversations way earlier than in the midst of a crisis. That's not the time to have them. Anybody in the midst of a crisis is not going to be taking in that information in a healthy way.
She says kids will just tune you out if you're yelling or telling. Instead, ask questions, listen, be vulnerable. But don't avoid the conversation thinking that you're protecting your kids.
You are not going to plant an idea that's not already being put out there by media, by television.
Abby's abuser has yet to face prosecution. She struggles to overcome her issues, but she refuses to give up, and she wants to share her story in the hope it can help someone else.
January 11th, 1970.
Told my wife that, better not have the baby on Super Bowl Sunday.
But Carol Johnson's son wasn't waiting on a game. In fact, he arrived at exactly 2:35, kickoff time for Super Bowl IV.
First-born child, you're kind of anxious and excited, but yes, I was excited that the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl.
Carol, who was 32 at the time, ran around the hospital looking for a TV. He found one, but it didn't work. So after making sure his wife and son were healthy, Carol went home and watched his Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings in the second half of the big game.
It was awesome because that was one of the best football teams.
Later that evening, back at the hospital, Carol and his wife named their son Jarrett Lynn Johnson.
Well, the running back was Mike Garrett. So Jarrett and Garrett, I was kind of rhymed. And then his middle name is Lynn, after Lynn Dawson, the quarterback.
Jarrett has heard this story time and time again, but he understands his father's choices that day and says he may have done the same.
There's competing passions. One doesn't diminish the other, but just like we often do in life with most things, we try to multitask, and we try to have it all.
Now, 50 years later, the father-son duo are both anxious. Not because there's a baby on the way, but rather their beloved Chiefs are once again playing in the Super Bowl.
We're going to win. Go Chiefs.
And this time around, they'll get to share the experience together. 82-year-old Smokey Johnson has no idea who's on the other side of his door.
Maybe it's a neighbor.
But he's waited decades to meet him.
Well, hi. Smokey?
Yeah?
Mike Garrett, how are you?
Oh, good grief, Mike Garrett.
50 years ago, Garrett was a Chiefs running back playing in Super Bowl IV. That same day, Smokey became a father to a boy he and his wife named Jarrett Lynn Johnson. Jarrett like Garrett.
When I heard the story, I said, oh, it just tugged at my heart.
Smokey couldn't believe one of his heroes was in his house.
I just want to soak everything in and be able to meet Mike Garrett. It's just a dream come true.
Clinton,
and
yes.
then I think Jim Tyre's over there.
Oh, remember Jim Tyre.
Garrett and Smokey talked like they were old pals for about an hour. The former Chiefs star even surprised him with an autographed football.
It's 50 years late, but I thought better late than never.
You got that right.
The two FaceTimed Jarrett, who lives in Texas, and reveled in his father's happiness.
Can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. It's just one of the most incredible things I've ever witnessed personally happen in our lives.
Garrett enjoyed this moment just as much as anyone else.
You're helping me relive 50 years ago, too. God bless you.
A memory Smokey will forever cherish.
Unbelievable.
One of the highlights of his life.
I can't express how much gratitude I have towards you.
Nothing could stop them as they battle to win.
91-year-old Mickey Cashad has been writing poetry since just about the same time the Kansas City Chiefs were formed.
She'll call us. She'll get a poem. Say, I got another one. She'll read it to us.
But she'd never really been inspired to write about the team until the divisional round and their comeback against the Texans.
All those touchdowns. I mean, I was hollering here like I was at the game.
She grabbed her pen and started writing down verses.
Never had a game like this ever been played before. Touchdowns kept coming. The Chiefs tripled the score.
And she hasn't been able to stop writing since.
I lay there, couldn't go to sleep. I was so excited. And all these, like a ticker tape, these words. Oh, this was 23 verses to this one.
She writes feverishly after games about Mahomes and perhaps her favorite, Coach Andy Reid.
He keeps them healthy with his love and rules, and they look up to Reid like a dad that is cool.
When you're 91, the only problem, trying to finish before bedtime.
Here it is tomorrow, not a word or thought in sight of the moving inspiration that I seemed to have last night.
One of her newest poems, Go Chiefs Go, was posted online and is getting plenty of love from Chiefs Kingdom.
Go Chiefs Go, the song heard around the world.
not everybody gets to see her or read her poems, so it's nice and happy for it to get out there, and let other people enjoy them.
And all the KC team, win the Super Bowl for us. Let it not be a dream.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
This is the famous farewell speech by Lou Gehrig in 1939, the New York Yankee player who retired early after a fatal ALS diagnosis. And more than 80 years after this speech, little has been done and little is still known about the incurable disease that attacks nerve cells in the brain and spinal cord and weakens muscles to the point patients can't walk, talk, or eat.
It's a real crime, in my opinion, that it's gone unnoticed and unsupported.
Scott Smith, local fitness enthusiast and gym owner, was diagnosed fall of 2020. When he first noticed symptoms, although mild, he knew something wasn't right. This disease now consumes his life. He's had to give up one of the things he loves the most, but the hardest part is the impact on his family.
I can't describe the pain of seeing someone you love slowly lose themselves. This isn't just, they don't just give you a death sentence. It's you slowly die every single day, and witnessing it is awful.
Enter the shocking splashes in celebrities. The viral moment captured the attention of people all around the world in 2014. The Ice Bucket Challenge raising money and awareness of ALS. Scott says it's time for a new challenge, starting his own movement, #FlexOnALS, as a way to honor and pay tribute to those who can no longer flex.
Initially started with my fitness community here in KC, and then it kind of spread from there, and about a week later there was over 1,000 people who had done it.
He's partnered with the organization I Am ALS, and in 2 weeks' time raised close to $10,000. The Smith family says this gives them a small boost, along with Scott's acceptance into a highly competitive medical trial, is aimed at reversing the deterioration in patients. Only 12 people accepted nationally.
It gives us some hope to hold on to, which is really important when you're facing down a disease that's devastating, that is always fatal.
But I've got an awful lot to live for.
In the meantime, hoping Flex on ALS movement will be as memorable as this speech as the cure for ALS continues.